So in this video, I'm going to show you how I build data packages for final turnovers in Bluebeam. So I have a template that I use. If you want the same template, there will be a link in the description for it. But you can see here, it starts with a title page. Project title, job number, location. You can put your company logo up here at the top. Second page is a table of contents. It kind of shows you what all is there. Got a certificate of conformance for your structural steel, ITPs, your as-built drawings, which would be basically, for me, it's my walk downs that shows my highlights and what's accepted. My bolting logs, which is basically a checklist for when I'm walking down steel. You have your piping ITPs, your heat map, your welding section, your NDE section, pressure testing, your flanges, your bolt up mapping and all the verifications. Piping tie-in field verifications. We build a lot of modules, and they have piping that runs off of the modules, so we have to verify that those are in the correct coordinates, and that's what that is. And then you have your electrical, your paint, and your insulation. So depending on what job you're on, you may not need all of these things, or you may need more than these things, but you can easily click and delete any of these, or you can add what you need. So for each one of these, there is a cover sheet for each section. So this would be for your COC. And in that section, I have a COC template that you can use. You have your structural ITP, your as-built drawings, your structural bolting assembly logs. So it breaks down different subcategories in each section. You can change these or you can delete them. It's completely up to you. Your piping ITP, heat map, your welding shows all your procedures, your map, your log, a list of your welders and those welder certifications. Your NDE section, you've got your RTs, your PTs. If you need to add, MT, UT, anything else, you can add that in there. And then it also has a section for your technician certifications. Your pneumatic pressure testing section, which shows your test log, your COC if you need it, your pressure gauge certifications, and your highlighted PNIDs. I like to walk the systems down and highlight everything that's being tested, and I like to add those into my final data package. Your flanges and bolt up section, you got a spot for your map, your log, and your torque wrench calibration certs. Piping tie-ins, I explained what that is a few minutes ago. You may or may not need that. Your I&E, conduit plans, heat trace reports, cable and wire testing. This category especially is going to vary job to job. Your paint reports and your insulation. I usually put a completion form and a PNID walk down. So this is just a really quick look at what you will get if you get my template. You can just take this, open it up in Bluebeam, and then just go to each section and insert your documents into each section the way that you need it. So let's just look at an actual example with some of the stuff actually in there. So here we have our example. We're going to turn on scrolling pages down here to make this easier to scroll through. So table of contents, you've already seen it. It's the same. Here's a COC. Here's one that's actually filled out. You can see where I signed it, quality control. You got the date, your area, job location, job number. This specific COC is for structural steel, basically just saying that all the structural joints are complete and that I've looked at it, quality control has looked at it, and it's acceptable. So your ITP, this is your inspection and test plan. It's basically a list of all the steps that need to be complete for the job. It shows your inspection points, your hold points, your notify points. Usually it's going to need to be signed off at each hold point by the QA or by the client or by someone specifically. It usually tells you who it is that needs to be notified. If you want a blank template of this, I will have a link in the description for this as well, so you can fill it out the way that best matches your job. Moving on to as-built drawings. This is just some steel drawings I highlighted in Bluebeam as I walked them down checked measurements, checked elevations, made sure that everything was acceptable. Once I felt good about it, I stamped it, showing that all measurements were within tolerance and all steel members are square and plumb. These stamps here are part of my QC workflow field toolset, where I have all kinds of markups that I custom made that I like to use in the field and in the office. If you want that toolset, then there will be a link in the description for that also. So for modules, we do a squareness verification where we make sure that everything is square and plumb, pulling X measurements on the ends and on the sides. That's all that is. Bolting assembly logs. So this is just a checklist of when I'm walking down steel, showing that everything's correct elevations, horizontal steel framing at correct elevations, bolted connections properly tightened, any NDE is complete and acceptable, grouting is complete, coating touch-up is complete, fireproofing is complete. This will change job to job, but you know, this is something that you can definitely use as well. We do a lot of squirt washers, as they call them, with applied bolting. And this is just their information, their values for their tightnesses, for everything. This is my Skidmore log. Whenever we do steel, we have to do a log before we ever start erecting the steel. We do 3 bolts of each size, every lot, every washer, every nut. It all gets documented. It's to make sure that all the bolting and everything's good and can reach the minimum pretensions before you actually start building the steel. Here's a picture of the Skidmore log. Here's a lot, several lots of bolts while we were doing the testing. And here is the calibration certificate for that Skidmore log. All this goes into my data package that gets turned over at the end of the job. Piping ITP, this is the same as the structural steel ITP that we looked at earlier. It's the same format, but it's completely different. This one is for piping, where the other one was for structural steel. Inspection points, hold points, notify points, just step by step. This gives all of your NDE percentages and requirements and all of those things. Anything job related that's required usually goes on the ITP. Heat map. So a lot of jobs require us to track heats for all of the material. So as we check the MTRs and we make sure that they match the materials, it gets noted up here in the BOM next to the piping. So you can see that this piping 1/2 inch schedule 160 had a heat number of BG2067. This 90 had M471, the flange has a number, everything has a number. I only have one sheet in here because this is just an example, but usually every ISO on the entire project for whatever specific job we're doing will be in here. It'll be a whole full-blown heat map. So for welding, we start off with our welding procedures, and then we have a weld map. Then we have our weld log, which shows us all of our welds documented into an Excel sheet. It shows NDE, completion, percentages, and everything that they need to know. A welder list. On this list, I put the welder's name and the welder stencil. It makes it easy to reference both the map and the welder certs, which comes last in the welding section. After that, we have NDE. So we have our RT reports, and then we have our PT reports, and then we have our certs for our technicians. Pneumatic pressure testing, we have a test log, a COC, which sometimes they want to see, our calibration certificates for the gauges we use to pressure test, and highlighted P&IDs. Like I said earlier, I like to walk the systems down a lot, and we'll highlight everything that was involved in the test and color code it depending on different test pressures. Flanges and bolt up. So we have our flange maps where we give each flange its own number. And then we have a log that basically is the same as our weld log to our weld map, we have a flange log to our flange map that shows you each number and gives you everything you need to know about that bolt up. And then most of the time we tighten everything with a torque wrench, and this is the calibration certificate for that torque wrench. Our piping tie-in field verifications, this is just measurements that I take on all of our tie-in points. I stamp them to show that they're good. I&E, so this is your instrument and electrical. We'll have usually conduit plans and heat trace sign-offs, installed cable and wire tests. There usually be all kinds of stuff in here. Usually our electrician on site completes all of this with his QC. They give me the documents and I insert it all into Bluebeam and I turn it over to the client in the final turnover package. Same thing with the paint reports. The painters do their thing. Whenever they're done, they give me the paint reports. I check the reports to the spec, make sure that they have all the right correct information on them, and then I put them in Bluebeam. And the same way with the insulation. The insulators give me a completion form. I usually walk the insulation down and I highlight the same way I do with the pressure testing. I'll walk the systems down and I'll make sure that everything is insulated that's supposed to be with the correct insulation. I take this information and I put it in the final documentation package. So as far as MTRs, if it's not that many and the job's pretty small, I'll usually include those in this same package. I'll just come down here below insulation and I'll put MTRs, and I'll make a cover sheet that goes at the very end of this for MTRs after the insulation, and I'll just insert the MTRs there. And this would be just delivered all in one package together. So sometimes the job would be big and there would be a lot of MTRs. So in that case, I'll deliver a separate data package for MTRs only. So usually how I'll do that is I'll just make a copy of my turnover data book template, so it's a separate file, and I'll delete everything from the table of contents down. That way all that's left is this title page. I'll change this information to make it say MTRs and add the job number and all that information to make it match the other data package, and then I'll just insert the MTRs right after page 1. So all you'll have in that package is the title page and just MTRs below that, and it just makes it a cleaner delivery. I'll deliver 2 packages, one with all of this information and then another with MTRs only. So real quick, I just want to show you, once you have this template, how to insert your documents, your maps, your logs, and all those types of things into the actual package in Bluebeam. So right here, let's say we want to add our weld map. If you look down here at the bottom in parentheses, you'll see 10 of 17. 17 is how many pages is in this whole document, and we are on page 10. So with that in mind, we'll go to Document, Insert, and then go to Pages from Document. We'll select our weld map and hit Open. So we want this to come right after page 10. So we want to make sure that this is selected. It says After, and page 10 is right here. So this is going to come right after page 10. If you wanted it to be the first thing in the entire document, you'd go to first page. If you wanted it to be the last thing, you'd go to last page. It's pretty self-explanatory. So after page 10, we hit OK. And now right after our page 10, which is our welding cover sheet, we now have our weld map. So once you have this template, then you can just go through and just insert all of your documentation in between all of your cover sheets to build your turnover package. So I know I ran through that pretty quick, but that is basically an example of how I build my turnover packages. I try to keep it all nice and neat. Everything goes into one digital PDF, and I do it all with Bluebeam, except some things I do in Excel. I have other videos showing how I do those things in Excel and how I export those files to where Bluebeam can read them. Like I said earlier, you can get my turnover data book template. The link is in the description. Several other things that you saw in this video, I'll have blank templates for those as well. Links to each of those things will be in the description. And I hope this helped you out in some way. I appreciate you watching, and we'll see you soon. Thanks.